My first guest is Steve Severaid, a public adjuster with the Greenspan Company, which settles home, business, and commercial property insurance claims for insurance holders. He discussed what a public adjuster is, the need for fire insurance in our area, what to do in the event of a fire, how to get help settling claims, and more. Thanks for being with us. Could you introduce yourself and provide a little background on what you do?
Sure. My name is Steve Severaid. I'm a principal with the Greenspan Company Adjusters International. We are public adjusters. We've been doing this for 75 years this year, and essentially a public adjuster is somebody who represents the policy holder, not the insurance company, after they suffer a major loss, in balancing the scales with the insurance company and all of their experts so that consumers can get the very best answer to a major insurance question.
Got it. Great. So explain your company just a little bit more. What is Greenspan and how long have you been servicing the area?
So Greenspan was founded in 1946 by a gentleman by the name of Sidney Greenspan, who's long since passed now. And he came out from Philadelphia, where public adjusting existed on the East Coast, but not on the West Coast, and made a name for himself in Los Angeles and grew that operation. And about 35 years ago, we expanded into Northern California and put an office in South San Francisco. And we've now since expanded across the West Coast and into Canada as well. And so this is our 75th year celebrating in 2021.
It's not news to anyone who lives in the Sacramento area that we are prone to wildfires, and there's multiple happening right now. So how important is it to have wildfire insurance?
It's important for everybody to have fire insurance. These things happen on a daily basis, and people don't recognize that the wildfires highlight how important this is. But there are house fires that happen, across the bay and all over the place every day. So it's important for everybody to carry fire insurance, but even more so when you're in a dangerous area with a lot of brush, it's absolutely imperative that you carry insurance.
Looking at this public service announcement, the twice-a-year campaign you're promoting, what is it?
Everybody knows they should check their smoke detectors, and not everybody does it. But in addition to that, the way that construction costs have risen, materials have become scarce, especially as a result of the pandemic and other wildfires that happened in the last few years, it's very hard for insurance coverage to keep up with that inflation. And so by checking your policies a couple of times a year, you're able to look and match it up against what inflation's looking like and what the true cost of construction is right now. Lumber is up 300+%. All these labor shortages and access to workers and all these things combined create a much more expensive repair should something bad happen to your home. So by checking in a couple times a year and talking with your agent and having your agent look at what the current costs are and compare them to what your policies are, you can make some little tweaks within your coverages that don't cost a lot more money. But in the event of a fire that happens to burn your home down, whether it be a wildfire or otherwise, you're now in a much better position to be made whole again. Whereas for just a few dollars less, you could be really underinsured because of all these inflationary items.
Right. No, and it makes perfect sense. So why is Greenspan promoting this?
Well, we are consumer advocates. We help people after these devastating events occur. And we also meet a lot of people who are not insured correctly, who we cannot help because they didn't have enough coverage. So we want to get the word out and make sure that people are covering themselves properly so that we meet less people after a disaster happens who just simply don't have enough money to put their home back. And so we want to spread the word so that as many people as possible listen and understand what's going on in the marketplace and are properly covered so that if they're impacted by one of these events, they can be made whole and get on with their lives and not suffer.
Right. Could you talk a little more in depth what a public adjuster is? What exactly do you do?
Sure. Well, there's three types of adjusters. The first type is a salaried adjuster who works directly for the insurance carrier. Think of like State Farm, Farmers, Allstate, where they have adjusters who actually work for their insurance company. They're salaried employees of the insurance company. And that's the first type of adjuster. And obviously that adjuster is looking out for whoever they work for. The second type of adjuster is called an independent adjuster. An independent adjuster is independent is kind of a misnomer because an independent adjuster actually gets hired by various insurance companies to represent them to deal with the claims and deal with the policyholder after a fire or other event happens. but they report to the insurance company and work for the insurance company, not for the consumer. And that's why it's not really independent. It just means they represent several insurance companies, but they never represent policy holders or insureds. The third type of adjuster is what we do and what I've been doing for about 32 years and our company's been doing for 75, and that's called a public adjuster. We're licensed by the State Department of Insurance to represent exclusively the interest of the policy holder or the consumer, and we never represent, just as the independent adjuster never represents the policyholder, only the insurance company, we are the counterbalance to that, in that we only represent the policyholder and never the insurance company. So just as the insurance company hires an adjuster, whether it's a salaried adjuster or whether it's an independent adjuster to represent them in this process, and it is a process, people have the right and the opportunity to hire a public adjuster like ourselves so that they have a fair opportunity to make sure that they get everything they're entitled to under their insurance policy.
So people would reach out to you and hire you?
Yes.
Got it. So how do public adjusters get paid? Doesn't that mean that the homeowner gets less money from the settlement?
No. We do work on typically a small percentage of what people ultimately get paid, but there's such a broad range and a gray area as to what somebody's entitled to under the terms of the insurance policy. And if you have good insurance, people who are woefully inadequately insured, obviously, we may not be able to help them because they can only get up to their limits, and that's why this is so important that people are checking their policies and making sure that they're keeping up with the times. Right. But if you have the right amount of insurance, it becomes a very gray area as to how much something theoretically should be replaced for, how much your content, your personal property are worth, how to go through just the enormous amount of work to put all that documentation together to submit to your insurance company. Sure. And then they're going to have a different view of it that's a lot less money. So we find that we add so much value that it's many times over that small percentage that we collect. So a net settlement with our aid and help not only saves an enormous amount of time, but also the net settlement ends up being a lot more than it would have been if they tried to figure this out on their own. Sure.
So how did you become a public adjuster? And more importantly, why?
A lot of our people started by working for insurance companies and then hopped the fence and came to work, doing sort of like working for the IRS and then deciding that you want to be a CPA and advocate for people. It's sort of similar to that. I myself started out by doing inventories. So digging through the debris of people's homes and identifying what was there and then helping to price it. And that's how I personally got in. But a lot of our people either were attorneys or they worked for insurance companies or they were contractors. And so we come from a variety of different backgrounds. I started sort of at the bottom, digging through stuff and really took a shine to it because I recognized that we're in such a unique business that we really get to help people in some of their darkest hours and really be impactful in changing the future of their lives. And I embrace that and love the idea that I can do something that helps people, really genuinely helps people and gets them, to be able to take their hand and walk them through this journey of this claims process and sort of pick them up and walk them through. And then at the end of the situation, watch them move into their new home and be happy again. It's very fulfilling.
Oh. And how many people would you say you've helped over the years?
Thousands.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Can you talk about the impacts of regular wildfires on insurance?
Well, that's a great question. The wildfires that have happened over the last few years have definitely impacted the ability to get insurance in a lot of these areas. And in California, there's something called the California Fair Plan, which is administered through the state. And that's sort of the insurance of last resort. So there's always available coverage, but there's some restrictions to that coverage. It's not as comprehensive. So what we've seen is people getting canceled in wildfire areas and having to resort to this sort of state-sponsored coverages it's not as comprehensive, as complete, it's fairly expensive, but there is still access to get coverage. And there's some other markets that are not the normal markets that are still writing. But it's definitely had an impact on homeowners of being able to select who they want to be their insurance company and how much it costs for insurance. Insurance has gone way up as a result of these wildfires. Now, hopefully, as things calm down and the cycle gets through and there'll be new people that will come to market and these restrictions will probably loosen. Historically, that's what we've seen. But right now, it's a difficult market. and people are often faced with not very many choices of who they're going to insure with, and really have to just be willing to spend more on insurance than they've ever had to spend before.
Right. Yeah, because obviously costs have gone up. You mentioned that, but it just makes sense. Is it legal for insurance companies to drop people who live in wildfire-prone areas?
There are some restrictions mandated by the Department of Insurance if you've been in a wildfire, that how long they have to keep you. But a complicated question with more than one answer. But the simple answer is yes, they are allowed to choose not to renew or not to write coverage in certain areas, and they are doing that.
Now, if someone has already been through a wildfire, can they get insurance?
Yes, again, there are some legislation or some mandates by the Department of Insurance that they have to keep you, if you're part of the wildfire, that they need to keep you for a certain amount of time. Ultimately, it comes down to this state-regulated insurance fund, this California Fair Plan, is where a lot of people will end up turning to when the insurance companies drop them or choose not to renew. So they'll always be able to get insurance, and that's the important thing. And they've actually raised the limits just in the last year of how much insurance you can buy through that fund. So they are making it better, and they're trying to make those policies more comprehensive. So there is available coverage. It's just that you might not have a host of options as to who you're going with.
Now, for someone who doesn't have wildfire insurance, what would you say to them?
I would strongly recommend that even if it costs money, that they go out and go to an independent insurance agent who can put them in at least in a program with California Fair Plan. And most people have mortgages on their homes, and so they're required to carry fire insurance anyway. And so if they don't buy it, then the mortgage company will do what's called a forced placement of coverage. But I can tell you that it's been my experience that that's usually the worst coverage you can get, because all the mortgage company cares about is protecting the loan.
Right.
So they're not careful about making sure that you have the right amount of coverage. They don't care about your personal property and your contents. And the coverage is very, very expensive. So if you don't do anything and you have a mortgage, your mortgage company will probably force you to buy insurance through them. It will cost more money for less insurance. So I would strongly suggest people don't fall into that. And I've met a lot of people over the years who have fallen into that, but you're spending more money and getting less. So really be proactive. Go find an independent insurance agent that can shop around and at the last resort at least be able to get you through this government program.
Other than checking their insurance policies twice a year, what else can homeowners do to be prepared?
That's a great question. There's a lot of things that you can do to be better prepared. One thing I always recommend is take your camera phone and walk through your house and do a little verbal discussion with yourself as you scan the phone, open up some drawers of your dresser, look in your closets, and do a quick walkthrough video of the contents inside your home, and then store that to the cloud or somewhere that's not in your home. And that way, if you ever do have a fire, you'll have at least some starting point, some record of the kinds of things that were in your home. And that will go a long way with trying to recreate, if your home were to burn to the ground, to recreate, what all did we have? Because it's really easy to not remember everything when it's just completely gone. So that's one easy thing people can do to be better prepared. Obviously, cleaning brush and debris that's stacked up against houses and the walls and stuff, cleaning that out, making sure that you have an area, a perimeter of your home so that it's not easy for fire to travel up and get your home. That's a major important thing, especially if you're in a brush area. So those are a couple of things you should definitely be doing. It's also good to have sort of a go bag if you're in a wildfire area where you've got your passports, important papers, things that you need, where you can, if you need to leave, that you're prepared to be able to get out in a hurry.
So where can listeners get more info on what we discussed today?
Well, you can always visit our website at greenspanai.com. It's a great source of information. There's a lot of resources and tools that are within our website to help people figure out how to build their inventory and do different things, and a lot of commonly asked questions that can be answered right there at greenspanai.com.
Great. Thank you. That was Steve Severaid, a public adjuster with the Greenspan Company. If you would like more information on what we discussed today, visit greenspanai.com. That's greenspanai.com. If you have questions regarding this program, please direct your correspondence to Public Affairs in care of this station.